What's up, guys? If you're seeing this video, you're probably clicking on it, and we're here to talk about why the CS skins market didn't crash today. And I've got my friend Garrett here with me, and he and I are both big skin enthusiasts, both collectors. And I'll let him introduce himself first, and we'll talk about why we never once panic sold and why you guys shouldn't panic sell. And then later in the video, we're going to tell you guys what items you should be looking to purchase so you can start making some money. So Garrett, you can say hello.
Hello, this is Garrett. A lot of you probably see me in Himmy's chat though as Nightstryker. Himmy and I have been friends for a few years now, and we have a lot of similar hobbies, and one of them though is sitting here and nerding out on skins. We love talking about it. We love talking about, you know, the hobby as a whole. It's just kind of a fun enthusiast thing to do once you really start getting involved. You know, that's something that we enjoy doing in our spare time, and especially when we're not necessarily playing CS. This is one of the other aspects of CS that keep us hooked into the game.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I wanted to talk about this tweet right here that you see on your screen. And the reason I wanted to talk about it was because we use this piece of information to form all of our hypotheses on how the skins market was going to react and where the value of skins was going to go for the future. So, you know, quickly summarizing this tweet from CS Float, there are 20 million coverts that exist that are not knives and gloves. And if you used every single skin in the game to trade up 2 coverts, it would only add 9 million more. So it's 29 million total potential coverts in the game. And if you use those 29 million to trade up for gloves and knives, it would add another 5.5 million to the already existing 5.5 million. So it would effectively double the amount of knives and gloves in the game. When we saw this stat, we knew right away that one, the knives and gloves would never double. That's not a realistic thing that would ever happen. There are plenty of coverts out there that aren't worth trading up. There are plenty of coverts out there that you can't trade up because they're in collection skins. So we knew, operating in that piece of information, that it was never a realistic thing that the amount of golds would ever double, much less come up another 50%. So that is the piece of information we operated on. And when the panic sale started, you know, we were both pretty big buyers because we knew that the value was going to go up. It just mathematically, it just wasn't possible that it wasn't going to go up over time. So we operated in that piece of information. You want to add anything to that, Garrett?
I think it was just one thing that we noticed though was, I mean, to explain the market crash, I mean, obviously it happened. I think the first thing that I said out of my mouth though when I heard that the update had occurred was I said, well, golds are going to be devalued. The amount that they're going to be devalued would depend, and a lot of that would also be very dependent on what golds were going to be devalued, how many of them were going to be produced. But I mean, the realities of it though was we knew there was going to be a massive change in the market, and I think where we saw the massive drop in value wasn't explained purely by golds, but also was a lot of it driven by fear in the market and people kind of, you know, there was a lot of misinformation. Yeah, there was a lot of misinformation early on, and I think that's what forced a lot of people to go and panic sell. So there was a number of aspects that we noticed that didn't make sense based on the math, and that's why, like, one of the things we had discussed was how exactly do we navigate this new reality of the market and how everything has adjusted. You know, there's going to be inherently some changes with how we approach where value is, but in reality, like, this was going to be far from breaking the market and making golds effectively worthless. Like, people were posting on Reddit ready to get their $5 karambits.
Right. Yeah, we're not going to be seeing those anytime soon. So want to talk about today, and I saw this tweet from Steam Inventory Helper, and I thought it was very succinct and explains exactly why we never saw a crash in the market. We saw the initial crash during the dip. And by the way, if you did buy during the dip, let us know in the comment section and how much you got it for. We're really interested in seeing that because we were both big buyers in the dip. We knew that, you know, the supply of golds was never going to increase dramatically. And we learned today that the supply of golds grew less than 10%. And we know in the future that that supply of golds, nominal number will go up. The percentage won't grow that much. And that's because people won't be able to afford these trade up contracts. Most people can't afford $250 to even run a trade up, you know, where they're hoping to get nice knives for, you know, $100 or less. But the reality is people can't afford to gamble $250 in hopes of getting a good knife. And now at this moment, I think, you know, maybe some of the cheaper trade up contracts that you could do is is going to be north of $350. So the price of those contracts are going to go up, and they're going to continue to rise as we see coverts get eaten away. There was no knife flood, as they put it. Did you want to add anything to that, Garrett?
I think it's just that, yeah, we were discussing that it was inevitable, though, that we were going to see equalization. We saw a huge flood of trade ups because people saw an opportunity. Hey, you had skins like the P250 See You Later that were dirt cheap, and you could buy it and take it on the chance for a knife. And early on, that trade up was a no brainer. Like, why wouldn't you do it? Now, like, as those coverts are now being destroyed to make more knives, the natural economics of it will kind of find an equilibrium, and we're going to see trade ups that are not going to be realistically affordable for a lot of people. But a lot of people were taking advantage of it, so this is probably the worst the supply is going to increase we're ever going to see, because it's such a major shakeup.
Correct. Yeah. And a lot of people did get those coverts for relatively cheap, especially the people who got the patch notes early and then just headed to the market and just gobbled up everything they could. But yeah, now most people are going to be priced out of these trade up contracts. So, over time, we'll see more being added, but at a certain point, it'll stop, because it won't be cost effective to even do a trade up. Right now, they're still pretty profitable, but the profits are going to dry up as the inputs increase in price. And so it's going to become more and more gambling as the higher those covert values get. So they mentioned here that the main trade ban isn't over. Yeah, more knives are going to come into circulation tomorrow and the next day. And that's where I predict actually is we're recording this on October 30th. I think October 31st and November 1st is probably going to be the lowest we're going to see the market. And then every day after November 1st, the market is just going to gain and gain and gain. As more of those knives enter the market, some of those people are going to be selling. But most often, we've predicted that the knives that are going to be sold are not knives that are ultra desirable. If someone who never had a knife logs on, they've always wanted a butterfly, and they hit that butterfly knife, they're likely not going to sell it, because that's the knife that they always wanted. So a desirable knife has less chance of it being sold on the secondary market. Whereas those lower tier knives, and I'll let Garrett talk about that more, but those lower tier knives, those are the ones that are going to be unloaded, and that's going to cause pricing differentials in knives. And Garrett, you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, I think that, kind of where we were talking about, though, was there's a huge concept that when we talk about all these skins, like if you look at a lot of these cases over the years, there have been plenty of covert level skins that were always dirt cheap because they were never highly desirable. I mean, I said earlier about P250 See You Later, Chroma, you've had like the Mac 10 Neon Rider, you've had, cases from the Revolver collection where, things were extremely cheap for the red because nobody was opening that case in their right mind for the skins. They were trying to go for a knife. And I think what we're going to see is that any of these cases that now have skins that are trade upable to a knife, they're going to maintain a certain level of value because now they always have value as trade up fodder. You never know when that knife is now, or when your trade up might be the next, Karambit Blue Gem. You can never be sure. But what's going to happen is that the value has shifted in all the skins, and basically the skins across the board have now carrying that value. And even if the golds are still going to be rare, but the problem is there's a lot of golds that were never high quality. I mean, we're talking things like gut knives, shadow daggers, navajas. These were traditionally less desirable knives, but even those had carried a certain element of value because those knives were, at least they were knives. Like, they were only possible to get through unboxing case.
So it's just a quick summary of what you just said, which was all dead on. But essentially your butterflies, your karambits, your M9s, those are going to retain their value of what they were previous to the drop. But the lower tier knives, those gut knives, those navajas, they're becoming more affordable because people don't want them, and the demand for those knives will be outpaced by the supply of them.
Yeah, I think the supply. Yeah, there's going to be just far too many. I don't think any of those knives are going to really appreciate in the long haul. And, like we said, too, as the price of these covert trade-ups, though, finally start to equalize, it's going to be unaffordable, though, for a lot of people to, throw in $400 or $500 into a contract with the risk of getting a $50 knife. I don't think a $50 knife would be unreasonable in the future with the supply increase, but like I said, because those knives at a certain point are just not that valuable.
It just won't be the knife that you wanted for $50.
Correct.
So, as they say here, the panic sellers played themselves, and that's absolutely true. We did a bunch of shopping on the day of the dip. You said to me over and over, you're never going to time the market perfectly, and you're not. Some items I got perfectly at the lowest end, some I overspent, but all of those items that I did buy on the dip, they appreciated in value. They've made money. Now, we still have about 9 hours to go before the trade hold ends, so we're still not into the clear here, because
by the time they see this video, we'll know.
by the time they see this video, we hopefully have our trade holds expired. But we are seeing that a lot online, that a lot of people have been getting trade reversed because the panic sellers saw how much value they lost, and again, they were acting out of irrational fear, whether it be stuff they were seeing on social media or just straight up not understanding the mathematics behind it. But that is where some of you guys, you're going to be holding on for a few more days, but hopefully those who bought during the dip, they get their items because they were brave / smart enough to make those purchases. So, they have their like closing statement here, and that was just summarizing the demand for these knives is still outpacing the supply. And, if you guys are looking to make some profit on or get a skin that you want, you really got to look into some deals that you might find for those knives. Depends on what you're out there looking for, but if you're trying to get a butterfly, a karambit, an M9, a skeleton, a nomad, some of those desirable knives, a bayonet, I would suggest finding a price that you're comfortable paying and buy it as soon as you can, because these prices are going to rebound, and maybe someone out there is not paying attention. Maybe you get lucky, someone who unboxed one of these knives is dumping it and they're trying to get money for it as quickly as they can because they're not even paying attention to the market. Get it then. Use your buy order features, because honestly, guys, you're not going to find a knife or a pair of gloves any cheaper than you are by the time you watch this video.
I definitely think, though, that opportunity is the key thing, that this was a massive reset in the market and an opportunity for people to snag value where they can. And I mean, obviously things will equalize, and we'll get to a point where, knives and gloves will start getting expensive again, because all that has changed is basically the how these things are calculated, and where the value is shaken up, but there's still a lot of value, and there's still a lot of people that want these items. So,
well, I know for sure a lot of these items got purchased, and it's not necessarily gonna be by pumpers, market manipulators, but a lot of skin cash traders, they went in and bought the hell out of the dip. They bought everything they could because they understood these economics, and they are going to make a lot of money from this. But also the people who are pumping and market manipulating, they also bought these things. And what they've been doing, their strategy is they control the supply, and then they pump the value up when items are not being sold. If they're not like available on the market, they become more valuable, right? Because it appears that the supply is low, and they slowly feed those knives out, or items, not just knives. They slowly feed those items out, and the price continues to increase. And that's going to happen again. And I fear that what Valve initially was trying to do with this change was to make these items more affordable for the players. But I fear that they made a lot of people panic, and the market manipulators scooped up all of this stuff. And in a year from now, we might see a new market cap that we never thought was possible. And yeah, I have a feeling, a sneaking suspicion, that a lot of these items are going to be even more expensive in the very near future. So if you are holding out for one of these things, I really, really can't stress enough how much I think you should buy them now before they get out of control.
Obviously, don't put yourself into debt over this.
Yes, don't do that.
This is still a video game. At the end of the day, this is a video game. This is not financial advice. This is people who are going through an enthusiast, and be prepared that this is, this is
never spend money. Never spend money that you can't afford to lose.
Exactly.
That's the bottom line.
If you're looking for an opportunity, this is probably the best opportunity you're going to see in years.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, this is not. We don't want to go through and see any news stories about people going through and going to extreme measures, though, for chunking these losses. And as sad as upsetting as it is to see this kind of stuff, the realities of it is this is serious money for a lot of people, and be honest with yourself as to what you really can or can't afford. But like we said, this is an opportunity that we haven't seen in a number of years.
Yeah. So guys, thank you all so much for listening to us and watching. If you have any questions about items that maybe you think you see value in, you're welcome to use the comment section. You can join the Discord. We're happy to help guide you guys through this situation. And I hope you did find this helpful. And I'm sure we'll make an update video on this sometime soon, and maybe we'll start looking at each other's inventories.
Looking forward to it.
All right, man.
Thank you for your time, Hemi.
Thanks.
I appreciate you, wanting to put this little PSA out to, your community and anybody who's interested in doing this, and anybody who's interested in the hobby too. Like, please reach out to us. I mean, we try to go through and help everybody out who's interested in the hobby and wants to be a part of it. That's part of the enjoyment.
Absolutely. All right, man. Well, we'll see you guys next time.